everyone, and welcome to Food for Life this week. I am so happy that our guest this week is actually a second-time guest. She's a friend of the show. We're going to be talking about some things that are super important for our health, and I'll let her explain because she's the doctor and knows these things a little bit better than I do. Now, I got dressed today, and I have this overwhelming feeling that I think I wore the shirt a few weeks ago, so please don't judge. It's nice and clean, don't worry. But I want us to talk today about things that are good with our hearing. How's everyone feeling? How's everyone feeling with the change of season? Shoot us a message. Let us know. But right after this, I'm going to welcome our guest, Dr. Jennifer Sowards. And we're back. Welcome, Dr. Jennifer. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Ashley. I'm so glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, for everyone that hasn't seen you on the show, do you maybe want to tell them what you do and a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am an audiologist, and October is Audiology Awareness Month, hence why I'm on the show. And I have been an audiologist for almost 20 years now and have been wearing hearing aids in both ears since I was about 6 years old. So the field is kind of near and dear to my heart for many reasons. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, that's why you're here. Plus, you were so knowledgeable last time we had you on, and this is such an area that I think not everyone thinks about. And no matter old or young, it does affect us. We need to make sure we protect our hearing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So hearing is actually, or hearing loss actually is preventable. Noise-induced hearing loss is something that people can prevent from happening, but oftentimes people kind of put off wearing hearing protection or earplugs. They say, oh, well, you know, I'm not worried about that. But then over time, that damage is cumulative. And then what starts happening as people enter into their 50s and 60s and 70s, beyond, is they start having more and more hearing difficulty. And all of that, unfortunately, if it's due to noise exposure, is preventable. So we encourage people anytime they're doing anything loud to wear hearing protection. I know that we're getting into fall, so kind of timely with those leaf blowers that are so loud. If you're using those at home, definitely make sure you're just even a foam roll-up earplugs or the earmuffs that go over, especially those backpack blower type devices, they can damage your hearing.
You know, the guys actually, that's totally funny you said that. It's the guys that actually do our lawn. We're here this morning while I was getting ready, and you know, every time they come on those big industrial mowers and the blowers and things that they use to clean the leaves, they always have headphones on.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You know, so oftentimes we see people that aren't using those. I've been known to annoy people, perhaps. Is I'll either go outside if I see someone using those types of machines without, and give them a pair of foam earplugs and say, please wear these because you can't undo the damage that you're doing. So
all your neighbors love you when it's yard work time, right?
Maybe, perhaps, yeah.
You know, even now, like when I go for my MRIs, no matter, it used to be depending on like what part of my body they were scanning, they would give me earplugs. Now, no matter what they scan, they're like, here's some earplugs, like no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the MRI machines, you know, there's as you know, they can be a lot of clanging and banging. And what we've come to realize over the years is that, again, that noise exposure is cumulative. So it's great that they're consistently doing that now.
Yeah, even if it's not like whether I go in head first or if they scan someone's knee or whatever, they're always giving everyone them. it's really interesting because it is a very loud machine. If anyone has ever had one, they know that it makes all kinds of noise.
And it goes on for a while.
Yeah, the ones I have do. Some people are in and out and they're lucky.
Yeah, indeed.
So what are some things that affect our hearing other than, yard work and things that we may not think about? Like, is there things in our home? Is there things that we do every day that may be damaging our hearing without us knowing?
I mean, it's basically even listening to loud music can, so the general rule of thumb that is recommended is that if someone is a meter away from you, so about 3 feet away from you, if you can't hold a conversation with that person without raising your voice, then whatever you're around is potentially too loud. So that's a good rule of thumb. It's like if you can no longer converse, it's starting to get up there. And same thing with personal music players and AirPods and all of these things. We recommend that people set a volume limit so they can't accidentally increase the volume. We've all been there where you have your device in your pocket and you accidentally hit that volume and you're so if you can set a limiter, that will prevent that to start with. And then especially for teenagers, tweens, that sort of thing, it's really important to talk with them about the importance of protecting their hearing and keeping the volume and the exposure time limited.
I mean, there's things like that where I know some people that their music's up so loud that you're standing next to them and you can basically hear it coming out of their like AirPods or something.
Yeah, and that's going to damage their hearing over time. And we've all been there when we were young in our teens and 20s. You thought, oh, that won't happen to me. I'm invincible. But it certainly can happen. And it's kind of interesting. We've seen a couple of reports. I don't know if it happens as much now, but certainly, kind of teens that are sharing their earphones or their AirPods, whatever. So, friends are sitting together listening to music and one person has the headphone and the other person, so one side each ear. And so what we're seeing is that whichever way those friends have kind of shared that loud music, they're ending up with hearing loss in just the ear that has the headphone, because if they're sitting there, kind of really rocking for hours. It's that's sort of the case study in showing that noise induced hearing loss that noise can have an impact on people's hearing.
Well, I mean, the AirPods now or any of those little devices are almost as small as a hearing aid. Like they're going to get to the point where, you can put them like inside your head practically.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I know a lot of times those devices have the antenna. So like the Bluetooth antenna is sort of the at this point, the limiting factor for being able to get that all the way down in the ear. But certainly I think over time, as they're able to, make that technology smaller and smaller, we'll probably see stuff go deep in the ear for, AirPods and that sort of thing.
I did notice that, there's something like, how we take airplanes and it's so loud on planes. I always find it really loud depending on where you sit in the plane.
Absolutely.
Is it possible that like just us taking like a trip somewhere that being on the airplane is damaging to us?
Again, the noise exposure is cumulative. So I think if you're taking one short flight, you'll probably find that you'll be much more relaxed at the end of that flight if you do wear some sort of earplug or something especially if you're, close to the engines or behind the engine, because that's really where it seems like the back of the plane tends to get more of that noise. But what I have seen over the years is working with different patients is that people who routinely fly, so either kind of business travelers or pilots or flight attendants, they can all develop noise-induced hearing loss. So we've seen that time and time again where people who have had a career, either because of traveling or because they are in the plane working, and that can cause hearing loss.
Oh, wow. I mean, I guess there's all kinds of jobs that can cause it. Is there a certain like decibel level, like how they measure it of what causes damage for everybody, or is it by age or?
There's a universal sort of level requirement, but it's primarily for from the labor and industry world. So it's basically set up as a worker protection, and OSHA governs in the most occupations. It's OSHA. There's a couple specialty applications, like in the mining industry, that comes under ILMSHA. Nonetheless, so there are regulations for workers, but obviously day to day when you're at home, there's no officials measuring to see what levels they are and chastising you if it's too loud.
Yeah, no checking what volume the TV is set at every night.
Correct. Usually people kind of police themselves, if you will. Oftentimes that's the subject of much disagreement between family members. Maybe if one person is starting to lose their hearing and in the evening they're turning that TV up louder and louder in order to understand. And then those that are around them are going, oh my goodness, that's too loud. Please turn that down. And then that leads into those disagreements. So that can be one of the little telltale signs that it might be time to get your hearing checked if other people are complaining about the volume that you're listening to television or radio.
Well, that's always a good sign. Are there things that we can do to help prevent hearing loss other than wearing like noise canceling headphones or wearing earplugs, things like that? Are there things in our day-to-day life that we can help be better at?
It's interesting that you asked that. And I think this, kind of dovetails nicely into work that you do. Is your overall health impacts your hearing. So for patients that have high blood pressure or they have diabetes, they have higher incidences of hearing loss.
Wow.
Because the part of the inner ear, the cochlea, that really kind of does all the work, receives the same blood supply that every other part that comes from every other part of the body. So then what happens is when people have, high sugar levels, or they have high blood pressure, over time that can impact their hearing. So the things that we recommend is to, eat good, whole, healthy food, and also to maintain a consistent exercise regimen. You don't need to run a marathon every weekend, but just healthy walk, just keeping the blood flow going, and that sort of thing just takes it helps.
It's amazing how much what we put in our body can affect what's going on, as simple as our hearing, or how our hair grows or our nails. Like, I think people don't understand how much that happens. And I can see how, like, if you have high blood pressure, the blood vessels and everything, like blood flow to the head and things.
Absolutely.
A lot of different things I think people don't consider. They're not side effects, I guess, most people talk about as much.
Right. And it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not like you eat a bag of potato chips and then your hearing drops. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the cumulative effect over time is that the healthier you are, the healthier all the rest of you will be, including your inner ear.
Yes, if you eat dessert on your birthday or have, a glass of wine or something, I don't think it's going to make your hearing go spontaneously gone.
Correct. Absolutely not. Yeah.
It's so funny, as I have a friend that's newer to me, and she was telling me about how her husband's family at an early age, they all started to lose their hearing. Is that like a congenital thing? Is that something that can be?
So, and you bring up a good point. So hearing loss can run in family. So for some people, even if they're really diligent about wearing hearing protection and they're really proactive about eating healthy and just maintaining a healthy lifestyle, if everyone else in their family developed hearing loss at the age of 40 or 50, then that may, sometimes we just play the genetic cards that were dealt. Unfortunately, at this point, there's not much that we can do about that. Certainly, there's a lot of research being done in the genetics of hearing loss and manipulation of those genes, but at this point, there's not much readily, kind of day-to-day available for most patients. It's kind of still in the field trial, FDA trials, etc. So there can be, so essentially, if you have someone or someone at home is watching and it goes, oh, my grandparents had hearing loss, all my aunts and uncles and my parents, chances are, I mean, maybe you got lucky, but chances are, if there's that genetic predisposition there, that it's a very good idea to have a baseline hearing test, but at a minimum by age 50, but certainly at any point, before age 50, if people start noticing, oh, I'm turning the TV up, or other people are telling me I'm not hearing them clearly.
But I mean, as we age, obviously our hearing gets less. It's not going to be like when we were 16.
It's very, very rare for someone to age into their 80s or even their 90s and maintain normal hearing. Every now and then it happens, and I'm always surprised. I'll test someone who's 90 and they say, oh, my doctor sent me here. I don't know why. I just thought I should have one. And it's their very first hearing test, and it turns out they're still perfectly normal. And I say, congratulations, you've been doing all the right things. But the vast majority of people, as we hit, I don't have one to show you right now, but if you look at some of the sort of charts, if you will, the incidence of hearing loss as we age, certainly it becomes more and more prevalent as we go through the 60th, 70th, and 80th and beyond decade of life.
So, how in every decade there's like a medical test we need to take, like when women turn 40, they go for their first mammogram. So you're thinking maybe when we turn 50, it would be a good time to check our hearing?
Yes. So the American Academy of Audiology is sort of, the governing body, if you will, of the field, has made the recommendation that people should have a baseline hearing test by the time they're age 50. But it's also recommended for patients that are enrolling in Medicare. So part of that initial age 65 Medicare enrollment exam, it will cover a hearing test as well. So certainly that's another great time. So 50, and then also kind of Medicare enrollment age, if you will, is another good time to get that checked out.
I should inform my mom and all of her friends that they should go get their hearing checked.
Yeah, it's such a benign test that, and it really can allow us to establish a baseline from which we can compare in the future. I've kind of been noticing a little bit of difficulty, but it's not that bad. And what I hear from my patients when they tell me that is that they've started to notice a little bit of trouble, but it's not at a point where they feel like they're going to do something about it. And oftentimes it's a very good time to get that baseline test, see where you are, and then in the future, if the patient starts reporting more difficulty, we can then do another test and go back and compare those two and say, okay, so over the last, say, 5 years, here's what's happened, here's the trend, and then we can better predict what may happen in the future.
Interesting. I guess that would be like something we should just put it in our things. Like we go to get our teeth cleaned, we go and do these tests every year just to make sure we're healthy inside and out. Let's Absolutely. Put a hearing test on there as something normal for us to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, there are some medical offices that can do sort of like a screening, which is great, sort of a pass fail. And we encourage physicians' offices to do that. But certainly if there is, if the patient is also reporting some issues, then that's a great time to see an audiologist and get that baseline test.
Do a lot of physicians, I can't even talk today,
That's okay.
Physicians have baseline tests that they do, or is it maybe only in like geriatric patients or people that are getting older that complain of it?
It seems to be sort of just practice dependent. Some offices have that capability. Some say, we're just going to send you to the audiologist and let them figure that out. I have seen, for example, my son's pediatrician has a little hearing screening that they can do that just it's sort of a pass fail. Again, it's not a full hearing test, but it just lets them see, does everything look good here? Kind of easy peasy flying colors, if you will, or is this something that we're not sure, so let's refer for the full evaluation.
I know they do that to like little kids and babies sometimes because like they're not sure if they can hear you or if the little kid's just like totally peaceful and like, okay, we have 3 other siblings running around, I'm just kind of here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's anytime that, and the other time that we see a lot of kind of pediatric referrals is if patients or, young children are not developing speech or language, at a level that maybe like their siblings did, or, just based on the age-related norms. So certainly if little kids are unable to hear clearly, a lot of times they're unable to develop speech and language appropriately. So that's all. Anytime that there's any questions about that, it's always a good idea to get a baseline test for that kiddo, just to make sure that there's no hearing issues going on.
That's perfect. I mean, it doesn't matter your age. We can all have hearing loss. Now, do you know how many people in the US are affected by this, or like a percentage of people like as adults or kids that are affected by hearing loss?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of, kind of different estimates. And I think the most recent one that I saw is there's some 42 million people that are suspected to have some degree of hearing loss. And, that really is sort of the gamut. So that can cover little kids that maybe just have a temporary issue because of an ear infection. And once that's treated and cleared up, they're fine. And that can also include people who have maybe noise-induced hearing loss, or someone that has a genetic type hearing loss that's showing up when they're 30 for the first time. So it's a lot. There's a lot of people out there with hearing loss. So that's why it's so important to get those baseline tests, see where you are, and document for future reference.
I think it's really interesting that there's so many different ways that we can lose our hearing. So many different ways that we don't think to protect ourselves. Now, they have this new thing that came out that is very fascinating to me. It's almost like, I don't know, I've seen like 1,000 commercials on so many different things, everything from streaming services to the back of magazines. There's over-the-counter now hearing aids. So what's the difference between that and something that you would give a patient?
Sure. So one of the things that the FDA has done is they just this month released their guidelines for over-the-counter hearing devices. And so those are specifically for people who have a mild to moderate hearing loss. And I think, the way to kind of look at that is it's sort of like the readers. So, for people that, you start to kind of hold that paper out, the arms are getting shorter kind of thing. That's sort of when people go get those reader type eyeglasses. And the over-the-counter hearing aids are for those people that have just maybe started feeling like, oh, I'm having some difficulty, but I don't feel like I need an official real hearing aid just yet. And so one of the things that we're still encouraging people to do is just, regardless of whether they're going to go with an over-the-counter type product or look at something that's, delivered with professional services, is to have that baseline test, because there can be other things that are causing the hearing loss that are different than just the run-of-the-mill kind of aging or noise-related hearing loss. Sometimes people simply have wax in their ears, and that could be cleaned out. So, we still recommend that people have that baseline test, and then we can let them know, okay, so you have a very mild hearing loss. These over-the-counter products would be a good sort of reader starting level for you, versus someone that we would say, oh, well, you have a severe hearing loss and this type of product would be more appropriate. But I think, the thing to remember is that the over-the-counter products are self-fit. So it's sort of off the shelf. You go into, whatever store, you order those online, and it comes in a little box, and there's no one included in that package, so to speak, to show you how to put that in your ear, how to maintain it, how to take care of it. And that's really where for those that feel like, oh, okay, I got this. This is no problem. I want to see if I can do this on my own. Then certainly that's a good starting point. But for people that feel like though they tried that, it didn't work for them, there could be a multitude of reasons why. And then that would be a great time to go see an audiologist to see what's going on. Why is this not working for me?
Yeah, I suppose everyone gets that point where the readers just aren't doing it anymore and they have to go see the eye doctor, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So are you telling me the glasses you have on are readers, or are those for sure?
They are, and I realize there's nothing right now that I necessarily have to read, but I can see my name much more clearly there. So yes, as I have hit 47 now, the eyeballs have definitely started that process. So it's much easier to see things with them on. Yeah.
So these over-the-counter hearing aids, I've seen so many different versions of them. I've seen ones that say they connect like Bluetooth to your phone. I've seen ones that they said that you can like get like a one-time consult with an audiologist through the computer so they can show you how to set them up. And then there's ones that are just, in CVS, that kind of stuff. So how do you determine which is best for you?
And that's where it does become a little bit of kind of a buyer beware sort of process, and that's where seeing an audiologist first to kind of make sure that the type of hearing loss that you have is appropriate for those over-the-counter devices, and making sure that nothing else is going on. And certainly if someone struggles with the use and adoption of those, then they could enlist the help of an audiologist to be able to provide them that extra level of support that it's just not working for them, kind of off the shelf, so to speak. There's a lot of different companies out there. The FDA just released their guidance a couple of weeks ago. So I think, it's, in my opinion, it still needs to kind of shake out, so to speak, because there's so many different companies out there that have said, oh, we're going to do this. And, there's no proven track record just yet with those types of products. One interesting aspect is there's a couple of these sort of online consultation companies that have been at this, kind of over the counter. And what they found is that over a third of their customers, they call them, weren't able to do it just with those sort of online appointments. They needed that, face-to-face kind of hands-on professional help to be able to help them, whether because of, because sometimes, for patients, especially as people start getting into their 80s and 90s, it can be hard just even learning how to put something on your ear and that sort of thing. So that's where we encourage patients to, if they do struggle with any aspect of the over-the-counter products, to see an audiologist to help them, because that's what we have doctoral degrees in the field, and that's what we've been trained to do. There's an entire sort of realm, if you will, of what's called auditory rehabilitation. And it takes time to get used to devices and your own voice and the surrounding sounds around when you haven't heard them in a long time. So that's where audiologists can really play a pivotal role in helping patients succeed in this journey to improve their hearing.
So it's like overstimulating all the sounds. You're listening to things, trying to decide like, oh, I haven't heard this before, or what's this? Or, oh, I didn't know the fridge was really annoying and buzzing or something.
There you go. Yeah. Because hearing loss often kind of sneaks up on people, and oftentimes the person with the hearing loss is unfortunately the last one to realize that they're struggling. And so in that time, their brains have gotten more and more accustomed to not hearing, like the fridge buzzing is sort of the perfect kind of, example there, or air conditioners and that sort of thing. People say, oh, it's really noisy, and it can be hard to get used to those. And that's where enlisting the help of the audiologist to sort of help guide patients through that adoption of these new devices can be very helpful.
Now, you said the FDA just released like guidelines for this. How come there haven't been over-the-counter ones before? I mean, this seems like an area that would be welcome for most people.
I think part of it is there were still those consumer protections built in. The FDA was wanting to make sure that any of the devices that were sold over the counter would have the appropriate sort of safety limitations. So the volume wouldn't be too high, that they had no potential to further damage someone's hearing.
Okay. I was just fascinated by that because, I mean, there's been readers in drugstores forever. So it would be interesting to find out like why now, because we've had so many changes to like healthcare and the things that we've been doing over the last few years.
Yeah,
So
and I think one of the pivotal reasons that we've seen this change is because what we have found over the kind of years of research and tracking hearing loss and that sort of thing is it's been established that there are strong correlations. We can't say it's causation, but there are very strong correlations between untreated hearing loss and cognitive decline. And you could, kind of really go into, sort of all the reasons. I think ultimately at the end of the day, what we believe is happening there is that because people aren't able to communicate well, they start to either withdraw or, maybe they say, I'd like to go to that bridge game, but I won't be able to hear the bids and that'll be embarrassing. So I just won't go. And then that sets those patients up and they're kind of socially isolated. They're not getting the social stimulation that we know is so critical for successful aging with the brain. And so I think because we had that body of research that has shown that this is something that impacts people, I think that's, sort of even more reason for trying to find a way to allow people access to that as much as possible.
I think it's a wonderful option for people that either aren't ready to take the leap or if they just want to start trying things to see how it works. I mean, I've seen people at senior centers where I've taught like cooking classes and things, and it makes me laugh a little, even though I know it's not funny, hearing loss, but they're mostly just yelling at each other and I'm not sure either one of them knows what the other's saying.
Yeah. And, you can imagine where, so many times we've seen patients who say, there's a lot of stigma, unfortunately, with hearing loss. And so for some people, the reluctance has been just the device itself, regardless of where they get it or how much it costs. It's sort of associated with aging and, we all know how that is viewed in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I have seen time and time again, it's just kind of heartbreaking, is people will say, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And they put it off until, like you described there, they literally cannot converse with someone in front of them. It's almost become to the point where everyone has to yell at this person to get them to understand. And, whatever happens, the final straw kind of breaks the camel's back, so to speak. And they come in their office and they say, okay, they've resigned themselves. They're ready to do it. We fit them with hearing devices. And I cannot tell you, Ashley, how many times people have said, I wish I'd done this sooner. This is not so bad. Because it's much less noticeable to have a little piece of plastic behind your ear than it is to constantly ask people to repeat themselves or misunderstand, get the directions wrong, the recipe wrong, whatever it is, because it's so critical to be able to understand clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it over and over again. Like, friends would sit down to have coffee and they'd be yelling at each other. And honestly, I'm not sure if they were each having the same conversation, but they were sitting there having a good old time, but they don't really know what's going on. So I don't know if they're having fun or they think they are. So I'm not sure if it's better or worse for them.
Fair enough. Yeah, it can be really hard. And I think especially when people, if they're around, so, the holidays are coming up,
Right.
Those family gatherings, and I think what happens is that becomes a time when it becomes apparent to people that their loved ones may be having some issues hearing. So they say, it's come over at 5:00 and the person comes at the wrong time because they misheard, or, where am I going? What am I supposed to bring? And so we encourage people, with the holidays coming up, if they do, if there's a sense of dread there because they know last year they had difficulty and this year it may be worse. We encourage people to get that baseline test, see where they are. And certainly it can be much more rewarding, those family gatherings, if you're able to hear your loved ones. I mean, that's why you're there.
Yeah.
So being able to hear more clearly, it can really change the dynamic.
And honestly, then you get selective hearing. You can turn it on and off if you really.
We hope that people don't do that. Yeah, we've all heard those stories of, grandpa at the dinner table just kind of turns it off. So hopefully not. The whole point is that people are engaged and active participants with their family, with their community, and that's where better hearing can really get people back in touch with those that they want to hear.
I think it's great because then you can be taking part in more activities, you can do more things. And I mean, if you're looking at Dr. Jennifer right now, and she said she had hearing aids, unless you're like really on top of her, you would never know. We can't see them right now.
Yeah. My readers are much more visible than my ears,
Yes. They match your shirt very well.
Thank you.
So we have all these things that we do, and there's over time. So we have the noise-induced hearing loss. We have like the spontaneous, like, how do you put it? I'm losing my words today.
That's okay. So there's the noise-induced hearing loss, the age-related hearing loss, and then there's kind of just the sort of genetic predispositions. And then just to throw one more monkey wrench into there can be a sudden hearing loss because of a viral infection that affects the inner ear that just comes way out of left field, so to speak, for most people, and can drastically drop their hearing in one ear, and that's cause for sort of an emergency visit to an ear, nose, and throat physician just to make sure, because there's a short window. This is my soapbox I have to get on. There's a very short window once a sudden hearing loss is detected, and we're talking hearing loss that's not because of wax or an ear infection, but it can be hard to tease that out for a layperson. So if someone does notice a sudden change in their hearing, we encourage them to seek medical advice because it could be something that could be medically treated, and that can improve the chances of recovery.
Okay, so there are a lot of other things that we can do. What about somebody like one of my grandmothers has tinnitus? She got it from, I think it was from the pool, like swimming and stuff. It caused it somehow or another. It gave her like an ear infection and she got it. But how do you like get rid of things like that? Can you get rid of it, or will it affect your hearing forever?
The tinnitus or tinnitus, tomato, it's something that oftentimes accompanies hearing loss. And so a lot of times I describe to people that sound, some people describe it as a hissing or a buzzing or a ringing sound. Some people say they hear a clicking. It can manifest in a lot of different forms. But what I tell patients is that can be sort of like the canary in the coal mine. And that's essentially a sign that something's going on with your ear that should be checked out. And sometimes it's related to hearing loss. Sometimes it's related to an infection. Perhaps that's what happened in that instance. And sometimes it can be treated, and sometimes it becomes something like, the best example is sort of like diabetes, where it becomes something that you manage and learn skills and techniques for better managing it, as opposed to making it stop completely. And again, that's where it's good to get that baseline test with an audiologist anytime that you notice any kind of odd sound in your ears, because then that can sort of be an indicator that something may be going on with the inner ear.
Are you guys doing anything special in your practice for the Audiology Awareness Month?
Just basically, we're not having any sort of any special things that we're doing per se, other than just encouraging people to have that baseline test, and sort of putting it out there as well that with the over-the-counter products, we really applaud that's something that's available, because it really improves accessibility. Sometimes people say, well, if I have to see my doctor to get a referral and then I go to the audiologist, that's like 3 appointments, and I would just rather get it checked out. So it can help improve patients' accessibility to hearing healthcare, which we are absolutely for. But again, just encouraging patients that if they do notice issues with their hearing, or they notice tinnitus, that it's good to get that baseline test. And then if they do try those over-the-counter products first instead, and find for whatever reason it's not working for them and it ends up in a drawer or return, that would be a great time to see an audiologist, get that baseline test and see what's going on. Why did that not work for me? And perhaps they can help the patient find some ways to, find something that works better for them.
Now, how would you find, I mean, obviously your primary care can refer you, but how would you be able to find audiologists in your area, since this goes out to a whole bunch of people?
Absolutely. I think, Google is a wonderful platform. So if you Google search audiologist near me, and I think there's the thing that we encourage patients to do, of course, as an audiologist, is that patients do see an audiologist, because there are sort of some retail type places out there where it's more of a kind of a sales model, where it's less about healthcare and more about certain products or that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, I think it's very important that patients see an audiologist, because that's a healthcare professional that has, like I said before, a doctoral degree in the field to be able to appropriately diagnose and treat whatever's going on with their ears. And if it's not something that they can treat, then they can make the appropriate recommendation for an ear, nose, and throat physician, or someone that can, better manage that patient medically.
So you guys are going to be busy this month giving lots of hearing screenings, I bet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's at the end of the day, the take home message, I think, for Audiology Awareness Month is see your audiologist, see what's going on with your ears.
So you hear that, everyone? Dr. Jennifer says to go get your ears checked and to start checking it just like everything else, right?
Absolutely.
And to keep us healthy.
You got it, Ashley.
So is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
I really appreciate you having me on the show for the second time. I look forward to our third installment. And again, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that lovely, everyone? We got to hear about Dr. Jennifer and what it means to get our hearing checked and things like that. So now, if you know someone in your life that needs to get their hearing checked, set them up with an audiologist or look up resources in your area, because it is very important that we all can hear each other, especially with the holidays coming up. Think of it as a wonderful gift for your family. Now, after these messages, we are going to be back in the kitchen. Let's see.
Hi, I'm Liz Teresa. I help women launch and build online businesses they love.
I needed to give my brand a web presence, but I didn't speak tech. Enter Liz Teresa. With lightning speed, she got the essence of my brand. Her guidance notes, her tips were practical and concrete.
She's the #1 person in my life. I'm so happy she came to me.
So thank you, Liz Teresa. I am so excited to keep working with you.
And we're back, and we are in the kitchen today. So we all know I've been going a little pumpkin crazy. Everything I've made this month is pumpkin. So for my company, we have a theme every month, and this month it's the Great Pumpkin, like the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I know it's a classic, but I love it. So we are going to start making my pumpkin choco cookies. Now I love the name because it's cute, and I can't apparently get a spatula. And these are probably the most delicious things I can ever have. I'm going to turn it into one big cookie when I bake it. So we're going to start off with 1.5 cups of flour. Now this is gluten-free, but you can make it with regular flour as well. So I have 1.5 cups. These are dry measure cups. So let's remember what dry measure cups look like. All right, 1.5 cups. I don't know about you, but cookies are like the best thing ever. And I love putting pumpkin in savory and sweet dishes just because it seems like a lot of people think pumpkin, okay, pumpkin bread. So what else are we going to be able to do other than pumpkin bread? We can't just eat one thing all the time. So I have a pinch of salt here. I have some baking powder and baking soda to help it get crispy and to have it rise a little bit. I have a little bit of cinnamon and pumpkin pie spice. Now, here's the deal. Pumpkin pie spice, everything you need is in your spice cabinet. You do not need to go buy the specific pumpkin pie spice. All you need to do is mix together the spices, keep it in an airtight container, and then just take out as much as you need for your morning latte, for baking, whatever you need this season. It's perfect. All right, so we are going to give this a little stir. We want to make sure everything's well incorporated. Ooh, boy, I can smell that cinnamon, which if you've been watching me, you know how much I love that cinnamon. So yummy. Now, I have some brown, dark brown coconut sugar. Did you know there is a such thing as a light and a dark brown coconut sugar? I recently discovered this. I did not know that they had two different kinds. Go figure. So we're going to do about 3/4 of a cup. And I'm going to mix that in here. And normally you don't mix sugar in with the dry ingredients, but today these work best if you do that. So I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup. And we're going to mix it on up. Now the best thing about this batter is it takes a little bit of patience though, because we have to put it in the fridge for a half hour, which I don't know about you, is I'm like the world's worst when it comes to cookie batter that I have to be patient about. It means I got to require planning ahead and all this other stuff, and then I don't get to eat them right away. The best thing about cookies is that they're done in like 10 to 12 minutes, sometimes 15 if they're really big. But no. All right, so we're going to mix these in. Because I'm mixing it in, you can see all nice and well and incorporated. And then I'm actually going to use vegan butter in this. I have it starting to melt. I had it melting in here. And, or you can use regular butter, no problem. You can do one, the other, or you can do a mix of softened coconut oil and butter. That works too. So I have about 1/2 cup of butter. We're going to mix the wet ingredients in my little glass. Remember, glass goes in the microwave, not plastic. We have some vanilla. And now we have organic pumpkin puree. Now this is pumpkin puree. This is not pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin pie filling is a thing that people buy that's already sweetened and has spices, and you don't have to do anything to it. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to control our spices and the taste of everything. So we're putting in our nice, lovely pumpkin. Perfect. All right. So we're going to whisk it together to make a nice, lovely little orange mix here. See, pumpkin's kind of watery. So what I did is I squeezed it and I strained it a little because you don't want your cookies to be watery. By squeezing it and straining it, kind of like frozen spinach, you'll be able to get a better use out of them. So we're going to mix it in and create a very lovely batter. And I'm going to mix it on up. Does anybody else like other pumpkin things other than, say, pumpkin bread? Do they make it in a pumpkin cake? Pumpkin cookies? Has anyone else made pumpkin cookies? All right. We're going to mix this up into a very lovely dough. I know I call it a batter, and I know that cookies are not a batter. They're a dough. I just misspeak sometimes. I'm not perfect. What can I say? All right. So I have this nice and mixed together, and I'm going to fold in 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Now, I love dark chocolate chips. You guys know what a fan I am of the Hue Kitchen chocolate gems, so that's what's going to be in here. And then I'm going to put this in the fridge for about, say, a half hour before I bake it. Now, I'm going to bake it at 350 for about 12 minutes or so, but since I'm making one gigantic, lovely cookie, I'm going to probably bake it for up to 14 so that we get nice crisp edges and the center is nice and soft. Now, the reason we put it in is because not only do we want the dough to chill, but we want the butter to kind of go back to a solid form. And that way you don't get cookies, if you're making them individual, they don't spread, and then you end up with one big cookie anyways. So I guess you could probably skip the step, but we'll see. Now, in the next few weeks, we have some really amazing things coming up that I'm super excited about. We have one more returning guest that's been on the show before, and then something really special. We have a holiday announcement that's coming, so stay tuned at the beginning of November. It's so special. It's a project I've been working on with a former guest and friend, and I'm so excited to share it with all of you. Now, I hope everyone has had a good week and they've enjoyed talking to Dr. Jennifer. Make sure we go get our hearing check and our loved ones. And I will show you, as always, on my Instagram at BellaFoodie7. You can see it at the end. I will show you what the cookies look like later tonight. So make sure you guys go and check out Instagram. Everyone have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your week. See you next week. Let's see.